morning. We're extremely, extremely honored that you've all taken the time to be here. These last 6 days have been even more difficult than the first couple of days, as we learned of just the extent of the catastrophe. I think that all of you have been following Danny's letters, and if not, just let us know. We'll send them to you. The university's done whatever it could to communicate with people overseas, just how this horrific catastrophe has been seen through the university's eyes. And we felt there was nothing more important than bringing it really home personal with one of the personal tragedies. And you're going to hear a lot from Ilan, and Ilan has been incredibly gracious at making himself available, but also being willing to take questions afterwards. So I'm going to hand over to Danny, and then Danny and Ilan will read the rest. And what we're going to do at the end is for questions, you'll just, on that reactions button, just press the hands raised, and then we'll take the questions one by one. So thank you, everybody.
Yeah, welcome, everyone. It's, I don't want to say a pleasure, but I'm very happy to see everyone. And before we move on to the main act, why we're all here, I just want to talk for 2 minutes about what's going on in Ben-Gurion University right now. We have on the one hand, the incredible tragedy of last Saturday and everything that's happened since then. The numbers keep going up because more and more bodies are identified, not because more are being killed. We're up to almost 50 at Ben-Gurion University, whether it be students, faculty, administrative staff, or families of the staff. I just came straight from 3 Shiva. I don't know, what's the plural of Shivas? Do you say 3 Shivas? You know, amazing tragedy, the stories, and we're just going to hear one story today. But on the other hand, the Ben-Gurion University story is a story of unimaginable resilience. In the Zlotovsky Student Union building right now, even at this hour, there are approximately 400 of our students, where we have set up one of the largest logistics centers in Israel. In face of, this is not a political statement, in place of an ineffective government that has been derelict, the civil society and the university among it has taken its place. And we have a logistics center at the university run by an organization called One Heart. This is how Sandy was connected with. That is collecting and divvying up wet ones, diapers, carriages, food, protective equipment. The army is moving some of its logistics to our center. We have become the center of resilience for the Negev. Ben-Gurion would be proud. I met students there today who actually was getting them out of their houses. And then I met the exact same students at a Shiva call twice, once in a row, of 2 best friends who were killed at the dance rave next to each other. 2 students in our engineering faculty. And so it's the unbelievable suffering and stories, but Ben-Gurion resilience is what's going to be getting us through these times. And I think a lot of what Ilan is going to be talking about is going to hit on both of these 2 issues. So Ilan, for those who don't know Ilan Troen, I didn't make an introduction, but Ilan Troen is a Professor Emeritus at Ben-Gurion University, made Aliyah in 1945, a Jewish historian.
75,
sorry, 1975. Was also founded the School of Israel Studies, the Department of Israel Studies, also at Brandeis, where he was an endowed professor, incredibly involved in the Board of Governors. And on Saturday morning, when we all woke up to the tragedy, I got a text from a friend of mine, because I also know Ilan's son, who's an incredible professor of nutrition, who I've worked with, and saying, a common friend saying, the Troen's daughter has been killed. There's a rumor that, and I didn't want to write Ilan on Shabbat, and I wrote his son, and now so Ilan, thank you so much for taking the time to be with us in this incredibly unimaginable situation. And maybe just take us through your Shabbat, your Simchat Torah. Let's start there. How did your Simchat Torah go?
It was awful. May we never have a Simchat Torah like this again. You know how it is. We all have on our apps, on our phones, an app that goes bing, bing, bing whenever there's a missile attack. We live a little bit further away from Gaza than you do, probably about a minute and a half. We have 45 minutes for a missile to fly from Gaza to our home in Omer, just outside.
45 seconds.
45 seconds. Yes, not minutes, seconds. So we can go downstairs to our reinforced concrete bomb shelter, which was never in the zoning ordinances in Newton, Massachusetts, but is if you live in this part of the Negev. And we worried because we go to the Gaza envelope. We have family there. Our daughter, son-in-law, 3 grandchildren. We also know other people there. Part of the reason we're here in the Negev is because the Negev is the place that we love. We made Aliyah here in 1975, specifically to be part of this part of the country. And we began to worry. And we had then a phone call from our daughter, Deborah, or in Hebrew, Shachar. Glass is breaking. I hear Arabic. There's gun shooting of guns in the neighborhood. And
Ilan, where do they? Can you tell us where they live?
Yes, they lived in Cholit. If you take a look at the Gaza Strip, as it goes north from around Yad Mordechai, wherever towards Tel Aviv, and you go farther south, when you come to the Egyptian border, they are the next to the last kibbutz before you hit Egypt. So it's at the junction of Egypt, the Gaza Strip, and Israel. There is a beautiful farming community. In fact, there are many farming communities. So it's a piece of desert. To make the desert green, that gives it substance. A kibbutz with gardens, with dairy, with orchards of citrus fruits and other kinds of fruits. A small community, 150 families, no more than that, in this place that is so pastoral and gorgeous, not far from the Mediterranean, but also very close to Khan Yunis and to the Palestinian populations. They chose to live there. And in times of peace, it's a magical place. It's a place that can fill your heart with joy. For the landscape is just gorgeous, and it is the product of imagination and a lot of work and a lot of love. That's what they wanted. They moved out of Beersheba. They wanted to experience living in a communal settlements of fellow idealists who wanted to share that kind of communal life. So that's where it is, 55 minutes maximum from this house. So thank God we would go see them frequently. It's not like my family in the States where you have to go to the airport and wait 55 minutes before you get into a line and fly a plane, which makes us all very, very close and very intimate. And so we heard the bing, 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 began to worry, heard her voice, and that was the last we heard of her. We then got a call from her son, Rotem, 16 years of age, a gangly fellow. And he said that things were happening as well. And then he said, hey, metu, they died. First of all, none of us could take that literally. What does it mean they died? And then he was told, when we realized that something was really wrong, The we, by the way, is a family chat that was instantly established from Beersheba all the way up to the Golan. The family is spread across the country, and we all chimed in to focus on this young man. And we told him, don't talk, text. And the whole day was spent texting with Rotem, who was hiding under his mother's body and his father nearby. His mother fell on him when the terrorists blew open the front door to their home, then blew open the door to their protected so-called safe room, came in and shot. And she had the presence of mind to shield him with her own body. It worked almost perfectly. A bullet passed through her and went into his abdomen, fortunately not so deeply. And then he texted us, I feel blood. I'm covered with blood. And it began a long day of consultations. By consultations, he was clearly in shock. His older sister, who, by the way, went to Ben-Gurion University and studied psychology, is a trauma specialist. So she was telling him how to breathe.
Where was she, Ilan?
Where was the sister? The sister lives in Lahavim, a community not far from Beersheba. And she works with something called Natal, which means they are specialists in trauma issues of people who suffer missile attacks. Another member of the family is a physician and counseled him on the blood, not a large amount of blood because it was not a deep wound, but nevertheless, there you are with blood coming across your stomach and what to do there. Somebody even was able to take his blood pressure or check his breathing via his phone. In short, from north to south, we were with him the whole day. And those of us who don't have training in psychology or in medicine were able to tell him from time to time, Rotem, ata gibor, you're a hero. It was to keep him awake, to keep his courage up, and occasionally to give him advice. Like when he told us, there's smoke here, cover your mouth, take a sheet, cover your mouth.
Why was there smoke there, Ilan?
Excuse me?
Why was there smoke there?
Because that's in it. These, I would use a vulgar word, but not in your presence, Danny. These bastards wanted to be sure that they had killed his parents. So they came back several times to make sure they were dead. And when they were still not convinced, and by then Rotem was advised, get out of the room. He went to the laundry room by the house, by the entrance to the house, covered himself up with a blanket and some sheets. And he told us that there's smoke. And the reason there was smoke was because they wanted to use the expression, they wanted to smoke him out. Anybody who survived their first or second attack then became vulnerable. If they dared leave the house or their dwelling, they would then be killed. They were intent. They didn't attack a military post. They attacked civilians. They attacked people, normal people, families in their residences. And they wanted to make sure they got them all. They didn't want anybody to escape. So when I met him that night at Soroka Hospital, he was gray-black, covered with a film of soot. And it was the soot from the smoke which enveloped him and his room. It's not an unusual story. You're listening to me tonight, yes, because I'm from Ben-Gurion University. But when we came to the hospital,
Ilan, wait a second. I'm going to have to stop you. I want to take you back a little bit because you've gone through this so many. So here you have your 16-year-old grandson in the laundry room telling you that your daughter and son-in-law are dead. And I'd like to learn a little bit more about your daughter and son-in-law. We'll get to that. But he also has didn't he have other siblings in the
Yes, there are 3 children there. They're lucky. They were older. 2 girls. One is 19, one is 21. And because they were above 18, according to the rules of the kibbutz, they could have their own dwelling place. Therefore, they were not living in the house. They had their bachelor room on another part of the kibbutz at around a 5-minute walk, a 7-minute walk. That was enough of a distance to give them a measure of safety, because for whatever reason, the terrorists patrolled or entered that area much less than they did the residences where there were families. And they hid themselves in the room. They was quiet. They turned off the lights. Somebody came to the door and said something in Hebrew, but they could tell that this was not authentic Sabra Hebrew, and they just hid. Some hours later, like 6 hours after this began, one of my granddaughters, the younger one, it was terrifying being alone. She thought she would get out and see what was the fate of her sister, and she did so. And she gave her which was enough to know that this was not fake. It was a common kind of noise or knock that people use. And the sister opened the door, and then they spent the rest of the day together hiding in one of the sisters' home.
So how was your grandson?
They did not know at that time that their parents were dead.
They weren't part of the WhatsApp group.
They were not. They didn't have good batteries. Their batteries ran out, so were not into the whole thing. It was Rotem who, for whatever reason, his battery was topped off, and so he was the center of conversation.
So were you also terrified not hearing from them that they were gone?
Yes,
also,
we were. Yes, we were. The question was, are they alive? And we could not know that until that evening.
So how did this, I don't want to say end because it hasn't ended. How did he get out?
The army came. We were able to talk with or communicate with Rotem, and he kept on asking for help. Tell the police. In fact, we did. But the police couldn't come there. Well, there was one time Rotem sent us, I hear helicopters, and we tell them, that's good. The helicopters, that's us. But whatever it is, the soldiers didn't land at that time. He spent around 12 hours in that dwelling, ruined dwelling. The girls spent 14 hours until the army came and got them out. That's how they spent their Simchat Torah. And they didn't actually meet till the next day, because the girls were taken to one kibbutz, Gvulot, and because he was wounded, he was taken to Soroka Hospital. And that's where we met him. As I started to say, there were the family members of 680 victims there. It was quite a scene. And I have to say, and I'm not part of the medical faculty, that despite the apparent chaos, they worked brilliantly. There was a kind of efficiency and a kind of warmth, a caring, and there was no bedlam. There was no shouting. People came and brought food at the entrance to the hospital. People brought drink. There were all kinds of volunteers that just sprang up from Beersheba who came to assist us. When we got to the hospital, they already knew who we were, because one of the social workers in our family has a friend who was a social worker in Soroka Hospital, and they knew the story of this young man who died under his mother who was shielding him. And we were immediately we passed the whole bureaucracy, and we were brought to his alunka, to a stretcher in between the CT and the operating room. And what I wanted to say by that, you're listening to me, but there were 680 other stories. In the state of Israel, everybody has a story of where you were that day. And yes, we were virtually there, but so were so many other people. My father-in-law, who was a naval officer and was at Okinawa and Sicily and Normandy, he went out to sea and he didn't come back for a year and a half. Here, there is no front and rear. Thanks to the phone, we were present in that room. We were present, in effect, with my daughter and with my grandson. So in real time, we and thousands of other Israelis experienced this terror attack. I've called it a pogrom, for technically it was a pogrom. And I can define pogrom if you like. This was a pogrom. A pogrom is an attack by a military force on civilians, and the attack is based upon the identity of the victims. And these victims are usually Jews. The word pogrom enters the English language, or it enters Yiddish from the Russian around 1881, 1882, and from there into other European languages. Because the first pogrom were the Tsarist initiated pogroms against the Jews of the Pale of Settlement. And it was that event that initiated the enormous migrations which our parents, grandparents, great-grandparents were part of. And it says all of us, or most of us, in some ways, are descendants of those who endured pogroms. There's a special part that I have to say. I wrote a piece that some of you may have seen about that this is a pogrom. And it was based upon a family story because my mother lived through a pogrom. And she was present when her mother was killed in February 1919 during the chaos of post-World War I Europe, when 150,000 Jews in the Ukraine were killed. It was the largest event, more than Chmelnytsky in 1648 and until the Shoah. And it was one of these events that pushed Jews again to the West, to Western Europe and beyond. She was present, and we don't know the story. It was too traumatic. How was she saved? How did she survive? But I know, growing up, that it was a scar that she lived with the rest of her life. In some way, I benefited from it because it made her a very protective mother. And as a teenager, that was suffocating sometimes. Only later did I learn that what the course of this was, and did I learn to accommodate myself and apologize and ask for forgiveness. But who would have imagined that my mother's grandson would experience, or great-grandson would experience what she experienced? One pogrom to another pogrom, but with a difference. Can I tell you what the difference is, if you don't mind? The difference is that they were defenseless. We live in a Jewish state. That in the student center, there are a lot of people, our students, who have military training. Many of us in the faculty serve. Some of us, if not us, then our children and our grandchildren have been called up for service. We are willing and capable of defending ourselves to make sure this does not happen.
Ilan, that's an incredible point. We're going to come back to it more towards the end. I want to take a step back because most of us did not know your daughter and son-in-law. Before we talk, and your suffering hasn't ended, because we also want to get into why you haven't. But first, before we go on, I think it's important for us to know who they were.
Absolutely. First of all, what's important, they're graduates of Ben-Gurion University. My son-in-law, they met at music school at Ramon, which is like the Berkeley School of Music in Israel. It's both of them are musicians. So what I could say about both of them, first off, is what they share is a love of music, a love of life, the joy of singing. I
can say that your son-in-law was the music teacher of the children of the people I visited yesterday for Shiva.
Oh wow!
At Kibbutz Sufa. So yes, he was right. Okay.
Well known. Not only that, by the way, he was a music teacher in a school that both of them helped found, and to which some of the kids went to. It was a joint Arab-Jewish school, Hagar, and because these kids, my kids, were committed to peace, understanding, reconciliation. They thought it would be important that their children would know the language of the world in which they live and their culture. And politics makes no difference here. They didn't ask people whom they killed, who did you vote for? What side of the conflict are you on? It was indiscriminate. The bitter irony is that these were kids who sought a very different future for them and for us. Both of them then come from Beersheba, grew up in Beersheba. Deborah was born in a place called Columbia, Missouri, at the Boone County Hospital, but that has to do with their father being a professor and being very, very mobile before we made Aliyah. She was just full of life, she was very bright. She could have become a physician, or I once suggested her she become a biologist, but she couldn't do that. She finished her behavioral sciences here, and she said, Dad, I have to do music for my soul. So what do you say to your daughter or your child who says, I don't want to be a doctor, I want to do music? So that's what she did. Shlomi was born into a musical family, a family that comes from Romania, a family that moved to Beersheba in the 1950s from children of the Holocaust survivors, and run sing-alongs. As you know, part of our culture here is that one night a week, very often, there are people who come together and sing songs. Well, Shlomi was the organizer of the local Beersheba sing-along. He wrote music. They both wrote music. They were both poets. And we haven't talked about the kids yet, but they're really remarkable in how they're handling this. But what I can say is,
Ilan, before we talk about your kids handling
it, one thing, they were also devoted parents, and they took of themselves and poured everything of themselves into those kids. And what those kids are doing and why they're able to survive and go forward, I think, as successfully as they will, is because of their having grown up in the kind of home that Shlomi and Deborah built for them.
Ilan, there's a second type of suffering going on that most people are not aware of outside of Israel. You have not had a funeral yet. You haven't sit Shiva yet. No. Can you help us understand that? And I'm sorry for asking.
This is the time when I might shed a tear. There's no closure. We know they're dead. Shlomi has been identified, and his body is in waiting at a facility in Rishon LeZion, not all that far from the airport. We are in constant touch with the police, the chief rabbinate, and the military.
Ilan, maybe I'll come in here, because what people are missing is that the reason the numbers are going up still is because there's been, I don't even know how to describe it, a problem in identifying bodies.
Yeah, there are so many of them. Nobody could have anticipated this. It's not that there's going to be a difficulty when they come to her. They took the DNA of two of her brothers. They have her dental records. We called up the dentist down in downtown Beersheba. They have, and they were together, but in the bedlam of bringing bodies out of this kibbutz, there were so many from all the kibbutzim that somehow Shlomi was separated from Deborah, and the task is now to identify Deborah from wherever she happens to be. And we cannot, obviously, we don't want to have two ceremonies. We also want, and this is the wishes of both sides of the family, is they should lie and rest together, in peace together. So we are waiting until Deborah is identified, and we can have the benefit of a funeral and the kind of closure that will inaugurate. Until then, this is a very tough place to be. It's in a kind of netherworld. You know they're gone, but my clothes are not torn. I took a shave today. Neighbors are coming. I finished an article I was writing, spoke with Social Security, spoke with NBC, CBS. My kids are talking with China television. You name it. We're functioning. We're doing what we're supposed to do in our normal lives, but we live in several levels. One of those levels is the knowledge that finality is approaching. And we hope it comes soon, because this is really a difficult place to be.
So, Ilan, let's talk about the future. Can you finish telling us about how your grandson, the bullet, and how he sees his life moving forward?
Hi, sweetie. Hi, sweet.
Please go on to mute whoever was speaking.
I don't know what to tell you. All I can tell you, that's another missile attack. That's part of life here. What I can tell you is that I don't know, is that we're going to try to give him the best opportunity. He's been relatively calm, but all of a sudden yesterday, in the midst of the calm, he broke out with a shout that was visceral and came from deeply out inside. My wife had the good sense to shout together with him, so that experience could be shared, and that he could know that he could express his pain. We're not talking about college, the SATs. He was brought.
You told the story about him wanting the bullet.
Oh, I don't know the kind of operations anybody watching this has ever had, but sometimes people want a memento. The 16-year-old wanted the bullet that was extracted from his abdomen, both because it was his abdomen and also because it went through his mother. And it was given to him after the operation in a little plastic container that said biohazard. He didn't pay attention to that and the signature that indicates it's a hazard, and he just took it and he wants to have it. But then he said something interesting. He sees that part of his function in life is to carry forward the family, and that's true of the girls. All of them feel an obligation that this family must live, and must live in a way that is honest and true to the kinds of values with which they grew up. They don't yet quite know what profession, where that might bring them, but there's a sense of a need for continuity and for maintaining that family connection. That's all one can say, and that's all that one should say. The families around them, Social Security or state institutions have come in, and volunteers from all across this wonderful country. Somebody came in from Haifa today and wrote him. He loves computers. I mean, it's one of his at 16. Which kid doesn't? But they came in and they brought him a computer. We happen to know that 2 other computers are being brought to him by other groups who want to do something for the kids who are survivors of this terrible massacre. So they're going to get phones, but most importantly, their dog Marco survived, and they hope to be reunited with him. So what they're going to do, they don't know. Their residence is officially our home. In fact, the years that we spent on mission for Ben-Gurion University at Brandeis were in our house. Their wedding was in our yard. So they're familiar with this place. So officially, they are residents of the Troen household in Omer. The girls, they're of an age, they'll go to college, they'll go to work, they'll do what they do. And he will go to school, probably around here, because he's a resident of Omer. I should only just say that being a resident of this community is important, because it means that his parents can be buried here. They had expressed the desire that as they reach old age, they would be buried in that Gaza envelope where they were making their life in the kibbutz. That can't be done now because that is a battle zone. And since that is not possible, both sides of the family agreed, then let them be buried in the place where they got married and in a community in which they lived and in which they know.
Ilan, before we open it up for questions, and I first of all, I just can't imagine the strength you need for being with us tonight. Before we open for questions, is there something you want to say before we open it up that I didn't ask about?
No, I'm just glad that you actually began by the story of the good people of our university and of the students of our university and what they're engaged in. It's why even in my years as an emeritus professor, I haven't left. I want to be here. It's a place that I love, a place that I feel integrated. I get a thrill. I still have an office on campus. Maybe you shouldn't know this, but somehow I'm still entitled to it, I think. But even if I'm not, I go there. And I just love walking around the campus and being enveloped by the energy and the young people of many different kinds, from the Bedouins to the Russians to the this and that, and who are all together in this very vital place. So thanks for beginning that way, because this place gives life. And I feel that our children, we had children born at Soroka Hospital. We're here, we belong here, and here we remain.
So what I'd like to do then, I want to open up for questions, but I want to ask people, please remember that neither Ilan nor I have a connection to the army. We do not know what Israel is going to do. There are plenty of places to get military analysis about what's going on in Israel right now. But I'm sure that Ilan will be, I mean, as you see, he's been quite open about everything. So please feel free either to raise your hand or to write a question in the chat. Jeff, are you here still?
Yeah, I'm here.
Yeah, okay. And don't be shy, really. Ilan is here because he believes in us and he believes in Ben-Gurion and he wants his story known. And so if you need to understand something, please.
I would say it's also okay just to unmute and ask the question or make a comment.
Yeah.
Totally fine.
I have a question.
Yeah, please, Josh. That's Josh Arno speaking, Ilan.
Ilan, just listening to you is you're so strong and so clear-headed. I don't, how do you do that? I just want to know, just how are you managing through all this? What is your...
I think frankly we can.
But could I, Josh, I don't have an answer for that. People can act well under stress as well. To think that this is the way I'm going to be an hour from now would be an error. I'm likely to collapse. I might even take a glass of a favorite single malt. But when you get involved in telling a story like this to people that you know care, and you feel that are really part of your community, and all of you are part of my community, and I'm part of yours, you want to share. I'm writing articles. I've written a book recently in which this is really part of the story. This is you have to, sharing is part of, it's not just the therapy, it's, I think, the most natural thing in the world to do, not to shut up in oneself. And I am aware, my kids are aware, my kids have been asked to be, this is a big one, or together with the presidents of the major Jewish organizations in their meeting in Washington on Tuesday, with the vice president and with Schumer and whoever, to tell their story. And they immediately said yes. We know that this is us as incidents. We are the face of something that's happening to our people. We all speak English, so we have that responsibility. If this were for French television, I would ask my wife to do the interview. But this is in English. I can do it. I know how to do it, and I feel obligated to do it. And so, yes, I'm happy to be here. I'm glad you asked me. Words are important. That's my business.
Fantastic.
It's good to see an Arno again. I loved your parents, both of them.
I have a question and a comment.
That's Lloyd Goldman speaking, Ilan.
I know.
I've seen you and your family on the interviews and on television. I think you're doing an incredible service for all Jews everywhere, despite in this incredibly hard time. And You know, it makes me proud. And I think you bringing up that this is a pogrom really helps us in the rest of the world, because no one should ever have this again.
Yes. I want not to talk politics, but I am deeply offended by the articles that I read in the academic press when people say that what we're engaged in is vengeance. It's not vengeance. It's not political. It is a natural response of people who wish to defend themselves. So this happens never again. And we now know that never again is a limited liability expression. It has happened again. It's happening now, but we have to do what we can to ensure that future generations are safer.
I've been impressed that all the Israelis whom I've heard and Jews in the diaspora have all expressed concern for the Palestinian civilians. I haven't heard one Jew anywhere talk about exacting revenge.
Exactly.
And I'm very proud of our people for that, and amazed, especially that the Israelis have so much compassion for innocent Palestinians under the circumstances.
There is only one area, I totally agree with you. And that's, again, our kids went to a Jewish Arab school. This is where we live. The students at Ben-Gurion University also wear Arab clothing. We have Arab teachers. I have an Arab surgeon who has taken care of me, and so on and so forth. But what is troubling is that the population of Gaza, who are equally victims, have not spoken out. What we learned by studying the Holocaust is there's no such thing as an innocent bystander. Are they really claiming that there is nothing that they could be doing or could have done to forestall rockets being sent from their homes over to the homes of innocent people not far away? Is the intimidation so severe that they are paralyzed? If so, that tells us one story. If not, it tells us another. But I would like to see uproar about the pogrom that's going on.
Hello, this is Nuri Katz. If I may say something, Ilan, I'm amazed by you. I just so you know, I grew up in Omer. I left Omer about 40 years ago. But it's in my heart. I went to Omarim. I was taken to Soroka many times as a sick child. In Be'eri, I used to swim competitively at the pool in Omer, and I used to swim and practice in Be'eri and swim at swim meets in Be'eri. And this is very, very personally. I want to also show you something. I'm now 56 years old, and I decided, even though I left Omer so long ago, I did something that isn't very Jewish. I got a tattoo. But the tattoo that I got is, I don't know if you can see this. It's the symbol of Omer.
You've been marked for life.
I'm marked for life. Omer marks you for life. And obviously this is very personal. My father worked for Ben-Gurion University. He was a Holocaust survivor. My whole family was wiped out in the Holocaust. And obviously my friends, and it's all very, very personal. And I want to thank you for what you're doing. Danny, you're also, I mean, the fact that Israel is going to need good press, is going to need PR. I mean, the world, including the United States and Canada, is anti-Semitic. And we have a little short opportunity now for action. And I think that soon they're going to stop feeling sorry for us. They like us as victims, not as victors. I've been glued, obviously, to Israeli TV 24/7, and it's my heart breaks. But you mentioned something about the Palestinians and in Gaza and whether or not they're really under such pressure that they can't resist. I think I wanted to make just two comments. I think, if you remember, Abba Eban used to say that the Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity. I think it's amazing that they didn't come out the first day and say to Israel and the world, the Palestinian Authority come out and say, okay, this is horrible, this was terrible, let's be part of the solution. Let us gather all the Arab world together and let's go together and take out Hamas, who they hate. But I think the one thing that I haven't been hearing, and I'd love to hear if you guys, Danny, also, if you've been hearing, there's going to be a day after. Hamas will be taken out, but then what? And nobody's really talking about that a lot. And we all need to start thinking about how this is going to end up being Israel's problem, not only taking out Hamas, but what to do when close to 2 million people are left in Gaza without infrastructure and all that. And it's a horrible thought thinking about it, but nobody is going to take this on. And I'm afraid we are going to have to take it on. And the thought of it is horrifying. And again, Ilan, I want to thank you. Go Omer. Go.
Excuse me.
Ilan, do you wanna respond to that at all?
I'm a historian, not in the social sciences, and I can't tell you what's going to be, but I can tell you what was. And I sent you a note, Danny, in the 1990s, is that Ben-Gurion University used to host people from Gaza. The medical school was offering seminars in medical training.
2023, we had students from Gaza also, Ilan.
Well, that's the point, that there is a history. This whole notion of the wall and imprisonment, that's a fixed, an imagination of the media or of propagandists. There was no wall until there were terror attacks and a fence was put up. I'm a historian. One of the books I've done is on the history of Jewish settlement of Palestine and Israel. You take a look at the maps, and for the first many decades, no settlement had a fence around it. Tower and stockade began in the 1930s, and that's after attacks were made on Jewish settlements. The security fence or the security barrier down this country was in response to those terrible bombings of buses in Jerusalem. In short, there need not be fence, and some fences are being taken down. The Abraham Accords are really returning to us where we thought we would be as Zionists. Nobody ever imagined, not Herzl, not Ben-Gurion, nobody ever imagined that we would come to the Middle East and live in a ghetto. There were offices of the Jewish Agency in Damascus and in Cairo and in Baghdad. People like Sharet took high school in Beirut. We came to be part of this part of the world. We were the separation between us and our neighbors was imposed upon us. It was not a result of our own image, or as it is sometimes accused by people who use the apartheid notion, we are Heron folk, as that we are a master race. We never wanted it. We will do anything we can to take it down. We have come here to serve and to be part of this region and to do to bring our science, our tools, our humanity, and share. We came here to share, and that can be done with Gaza again as it once was. And
Ilan,
we personally have this role.
Ilan, thank you for that. I think that was important and profound. I want to give an opportunity for both Jim and Jay, who've asked questions, Yeah, raise their hands to ask the questions or make a comment, and then we'll wrap it up for the evening. Jim, please.
Thank you. Thank you, Ilan. We are family. I've stated it. Danny, some time ago, you mentioned things that we can do. There are almost 180 of us on this call from around the world. We all care. How can we show and what can we do? Yes, money. Yes, help. Yes, moral support. What I have tried to do, and I'm expanding it literally hour by hour, is to educate all of my friends, Jewish, non-Jewish, exactly what you're saying. This is not territory. This is terrorism. This is pogrom. This is critical. And by the way, here in the United States, this is Hamas. We have Hamas camps here in the United States, specifically in California, in Michigan, and in many other places. In my mind, it's only a matter of time before this progresses to our own backyard. We're isolationists. It doesn't touch us. That's the other side of the world. And that's wrong. It does touch us, not only because our hearts are with BGU and Israel, but because we are, and I'm only going to speak as an American, we have an obligation here to stop the inevitable before it starts. I've got a phone call with, some of you know him, Steve Emerson, in a few minutes, because he's been spending the time with our FBI on this specific program, and I want to know more about what he's doing. We have an issue here in America, not as the tip of the sword Israel has experienced and is going to do something about, but we have the same thing here. So not only should we support Israel, and yes, we even have a professor from BGU speaking here at our Jewish Long Beach facility on Tuesday, but we have a responsibility as Jews to educate as much of our own population what this is, because the 100,000 people in New York, the LA, the various universities, and all the crap that is going on here is through ignorance. And we have an obligation to do more here to represent Israel and Ben-Gurion here in our own backyard. Thank you.
Thank you, Jim. Jay? You're still muted, Jay.
Hi, everyone. First of all, I want to send my condolences. I want to share how impressed and, you are heroes, and what you're doing there is amazing. I have a son on a gap year program right now in Israel. He's in Kibbutz Ein HaShofet. Ilan, I don't think we've met, but I'm the student of Paula Hyman, and Jonathan Sarna, and I'm a reformed academic, but I sometimes still teach, and I often say anti-Semitism is my day job. In any case, what we're seeing here from the parents, understandably, is that they're scared. But we're getting, and some want to leave, and I think if my son's doing meaningful work there and volunteering and helping, that he should stay, and he thinks that. But what we're hearing is statements like, essentially, my grandfather waited too long in Hungary and see what happened. And we're Holocaust survivors, we can't have our children there. And they're waiting for the apocalypse. I don't feel that way, but we are seeing that. And I know it's in Israel, this feeling that the idea of the state is challenged, and we're certainly seeing it outside. So my question is, what can we do for you to make people understand that, yes, this is a pogrom, it's terrible, it's a catastrophe in a lot of ways, but that the idea of Israel, that the state of Israel, that the mission and purpose of Israel, warts and all, is not in jeopardy, that this is not 1939 or 1933 or 1942 in Europe, that this is a different thing. And I don't know how to get that across because...
Ilan, if I could take this one, please.
Yeah, sure. I'm sure anybody, Ilan,
Sure.
thank
Jake,
you for sharing today.
in Hebrew, we would say, you've set me up for a spike with this one.
Nice one.
Ilan,
I lobbed you, would we say in America, I lobbed in a pitch for that Grand Slam, right?
yeah, what happened to Ilan's daughter and son-in-law is a massive failure at many, many levels. But the difference between 1939 and 2023 is that when Jews were told to get out of Germany, and I have a friend who got out in 1939, his father, he had even converted, he thought he was German, was that there was no one to protect them. And we are still, and since Saturday, when there was this massive killing and carnage, the Israeli army has won every battle. Once the right soldiers got into place, there was no doubt about what was going on. And we will win this war, and there will be death. But there is no other, I'm from Pittsburgh originally. The Tree of Life was a traumatic event in the life of American Jews, and especially those in Pittsburgh, and there was no one to protect them. The only place where Jews will be protected is in Israel. And yes, we fucked up, excuse me for saying it this way. And thousands were killed, over 1,000 were killed, and people will have to pay the price for that politically throughout the entire country. It did not have to happen. It happened because of hubris, not because of weakness. And there is no other answer for the Jewish people but Zionism. It is still the only answer. And I can't say that any stronger. And the way that we will assure that is that at Ben-Gurion University, we are already thinking about the day after, and that our mission is more important than ever, because the rebuilding of Israel's resilience will start from the Negev. We are the ones that suffered the most, and we have to make sure that the Negev blooms. And that's why we do what we do every single day. So going to what Jim said, the first thing, everything one can do is every great video that Ilan has made, or my CNN interview today, which we will send out, you have to put them on every single social media that you know, and ask other people to share them, because people need to hear sane voices, and people speaking American English and not like unfortunately, some of the Israeli spokespeople, and get it out as much as possible. The Ben-Gurion mission, the Ben-Gurion story is the Zionist story and the story of the future of Israel. That's what we need. Yes, as Jim said, we're going to be talking about support later, but that's not the big question. We are doing what we're doing, and we will continue to be doing that. Jeff, I'm going to hand it over to you because we want to be, unfortunately.
Amen v'amen, Danny. I wish you a lot of strength and all the best. And I'm going to do whatever I can to support the mission.
Sorry for being so, it's been, you have to, I mean, I don't understand how Ilan did this. From what you get my letters every day. You see Chaim's, the rector's Facebook posts every day. It's about this time of night that I want to break down and start crying. And then we wake up again. And I mean, that's why I just got so emotional about what you asked, because it is the question for our generation. I have 2 kids in Miluim, and I'm not different from anyone else. This is what we're going to have to do. And the words of support that we get, you people say, I don't want to bother you, but I need to tell you, you have no idea how important these are to us.
Absolutely.
You have no idea how important it is to us to know that you're listening to our words. So thank you so much. Jeff, I'm going to give it over to you.
Yeah. First of all, I want to thank everybody. I think this has been not just a fascinating hour. I think it's been a real important hour. And I think, Ilan, to a certain extent, you gave us a gift. You shared with us a story that will stay with all of us forever, and we'll continue to tell the story. And I think that's part of what makes us strong. We're going to be doing this regularly. We want you to know what's going on in the university. We want to share with everybody what's going on. You'll have Danny's letters. You'll have as much as we can. We feel it's our obligation not just to take care of our community, our students, but also to be that bridge between our university, Israel, and the outside world. So thank you for being with us, and have a good rest of day and peaceful night for all those people, both in Israel and everywhere else.
Thank you.
Ilan, we are indebted to your strength.
Good night.
Thank you.
Good night and thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Danny. Thank you, Ilan.
Thank you very much.
Everybody.
Thank you very much. Strength. Thanks, guys.
Thank
you, Danny. Thank you, Jeff. Thank you, Ilan.
Thank you.
Ami Smile Chai.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you,
Thank
Danny.
you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everyone. Ilan, Danny.
Thank you. Thank you,
Lots of
Ilan.
love.
Thank you, Danny.
Thank you.
Danny, I don't mean to bother you, but I need to tell you as your cousin that I love you.
Lila Top.
We are with you.
Thank you. Goodbye. Night.